Let's get those lineups set for the final week of the season. Up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Monday, September 25th. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White. And let's get people updated on the 2 start pitchers for the final week, Scott. Merrill Kelly is in. Zach Gallen is out. Kelly is at the Yankees and home against the Astros. And I assume we're starting him there.
Yes, we are. I know there have been some extreme lows lately for Merrill Kelly, but plenty of highs in between. And we've been relying on him all season. I don't know why we'd shy away in a 2-start week. And, we're still starting Zach Gallen, too. He had a nice rebound start on Sunday. Even though he's down to 1 start, he's of a caliber where you don't really debate it too much.
All right, Clarke Schmidt is in as a 2-star pitcher. He is home against the D-backs and at the Royals this week, 61% rostered. The problem is that his last 7 starts, he has a 6.0 ERA and a 147 whip. What do you think about starting Clarke Schmidt in the final week?
I mean, those are pretty good matchups. And if it's like the second week of your playoffs, it's a 2-week playoff matchup, let's say, and you're playing catch up, and you're just trying to get as much volume as you can in your lineup, particularly in like a points league, then you could use all the 2-start pitchers you could get, and you could do worse than Clarke Schmidt, who rarely gives you a quality start. And you mentioned the overall ERA is high, but if you look at the game log, it's not like there are a lot of disasters, like negative outcome starts in there. So I think he's a good choice if you're trying to play catch up, but otherwise, maybe not. Go with Clarke Schmidt.
Zach Davies has also been added as a 2-star pitcher, but guess what? We are not talking about Zach Davies because you should not use him in fantasy baseball. Some waiver wire pitchers from the weekend. This first group includes Cristopher Sanchez, a dominant outing on Sunday against the Mets. 7 innings, 2 runs, 10 strikeouts. He's at the Mets again in this final week. Nick Pivetta up against the White Sox. 7 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts. He is at the Orioles. John Means took a no-hitter into the 7th inning at the Guardians, and he is home against the Red Sox. And then Mike Clevenger turned in another quality start at the Red Sox this weekend. 6 innings, 2 runs, 0 walks, 0 strikeouts. And in the final week is facing the Padres, a lineup that is red hot right now.
Yeah.
Scott, any interest in any of these names? Clevenger, Means, Pivetta, Cristopher Sanchez.
I really just Sanchez, who answered a couple of big questions in this start against the Mets Sunday. Remember, 2 turns ago, he had a 10 strikeout effort against the Braves, and we thought, well, that's pretty amazing. Was it just a fluke for Cristopher Sanchez? And now 2 starts later, we see, oh no, he did it again. 10 strikeouts, 20 swinging strikes, 16 on that changeup, which seems to be just a phenomenal pitch for Cristopher Sanchez. And he gets the Mets again, which, you'd prefer him not face the same lineup 2 times in a row, but it's a weak enough lineup that I think I still feel pretty confident using Cristopher Sanchez. The other question he answered was, okay, is he just in a piggyback role now with Michael Lorenzen, who got removed from the rotation? Because, the start in between the 2 10 strikeout efforts, Cristopher Sanchez had a short outing, also against the Braves. But he didn't pitch that well. And Lorenzen came in through multiple innings. Is that the way it's going to be going forward, regardless of how Sanchez pitches? Well, we know now it's not. They let him go 7 against the Mets again. And Lorenzen did come in after him, but only for an inning. Seems like they're getting him ready to fill a bullpen role in the playoffs. So Sanchez seems like a good choice against the Mets. Pivetta, I could see doing it if you're trying to make up ground and strikeouts specifically. But that matchup at Baltimore is pretty scary. As for Means and Clevenger's strikeout rate, I only has 6 and 17 in a third innings since coming off the IL. That seems pretty dangerous, as good as that outing was at Cleveland over the weekend. Much tougher outing this upcoming week. And then Clevenger, he's been on a roll lately, but most of the starts, there have been a lot more strikeouts, a lot more swinging strikes than what we saw this weekend with him striking out nobody. I think it's kind of a warning shot. You've gotten as much as you can out of Mike Clevenger. Just steer clear against a red-hot Padres lineup.
All right, some waiver wire hitters from the weekend. Names that had some big performances. Evan Carter, somebody I know who's on your sleeper hitters list for this week. He was great His last 4 games, 6 hits, 3 homers, 7 RBI, and a stolen base. 7 road games this upcoming week for Evan Carter. TJ Friedl has homered in 3 straight. He also had 2 more steals this weekend. He's 76% rostered. He's got 5 road games this upcoming week. And Nelson Velazquez hit 2 more home runs on Sunday. He's got 5 homers over his last 9 games. Scott, how are you ranking these outfielders for the final week of the season?
Well, my favorite of them is it's Evan Carter, who has been impressive since getting called up from the minors, and the Rangers are one of the few teams playing 7 games this final week. Even though the exit velocities haven't been great, the power's been there for Evan Carter, and he's stolen bases and he's gotten on base like he did in the minors. So I feel pretty good about him. Friedl, okay, he's hot, but he's back on the road where the power doesn't play as well, and only 5 games for the Reds. 2 are against lefties. He might not start both of those games. He occasionally sits against lefties, does Friedl. So that's more of like just 5 outfielder leagues only. Velazquez, a lot of power with the Royals. I think if you're trying to make up ground in home runs, in a Roto League especially, might be worth using. But I think in most circumstances, the matchups aren't good enough for you to roll with Nelson Velazquez this week.
All right, and then 2 names in deeper leagues. If you need a middle infielder this week, just taking advantage of all those games in Coors Field, Ezekiel Tovar, he's 60% rostered, and Brendan Rodgers has been coming around his last 8 games. He's batting .364 with 2 home runs. Again, that's only if you're desperate. If you need other middle infielders, go check out Scott's Sleeper Hitters on the site. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Audacy app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.